Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It is Tuesday, March 25th. Derek VanRiper, Eno Sarris, and our friend Britt Ghiroli is back. Britt, welcome back after an extended break, and congratulations.
Thanks, guys. It's good to be back. I will have you know, multiple people in spring training said, when are you going back on Rates and Barrels? And for those who saw me and didn't say it, well, forget you, but people, they want the third wheel back.
They're not the third wheel, but we're glad you're back. Got a lot of ground to cover today. Today is our bold predictions episode, so that's going to be the main thing we discuss in just a little bit. A few housekeeping notes, though, before we get started. You can join the Discord with the link in the show description if you haven't done that already. And if you are in the area, you should come to our live shows coming up this week, Thursday and Friday, March 27th and March 28th. Bear Bottle Brewing Company, the Bernal Heights location in San Francisco, 4:30 start time, both days. We'll be there prior to that, watching baseball, celebrating opening day, and having a great time. Hopefully you can come out, get some Kayakers Cove. That is the beer that Eno helped brew. Hey, that's the first time you've actually helped brew beer, right?
I was a lot more hands-on on this process. Yeah. A lot of times it's a Zoom call and I like, this hops and here's my vision board and, here's the ABV that I want. This one, I actually got my hands dirty, got in there and was scraping stuff around and pouring hops in, and it was fun.
Yeah, you looked like you had a great time with that, and I didn't think you'd done the hands-on stuff before. But
I used to homebrew, but
but the vision board thing, that's like how I usually picture you. Like, you got a great idea, and someone else has to actually mix it up and make it happen.
Yeah. Homebrewing was a disaster. I was terrible at it, and I never really got the hang of it. And I, at one point, left a bunch of bottles downstairs that still had some sugar in it, and they exploded. And my wife was like, what if I had been downstairs? And she's like, you're done. I was like, yeah, you're right. That would have been awful. So that was the end of my career as a brewer.
The challenging thing about home brewing, I would imagine, is also the surplus of great beer available nearly everywhere now. Like, there's so much more on the shelf
why drink
in your neighborhood now.
Mediocre beer that I made when I could go over there and drink great beer.
Like, how are you going to compete with people who have better ingredients and they're dedicating their entire life to the craft? Like, the chances of you beating them in your basement are generally pretty low, unless, you got like a chemical engineering background or something along those lines. But Eno's homebrewing past aside, Britt, you were part of a story with Dan Hayes and Ken Rosenthal about yet another team that seemingly is available in Major League Baseball. And there's a few that have kind of fallen into this group of maybe for sale. I'm going back as far as Artie Moreno putting the Angels on the block and like a week later saying, no, not really. But it seems like there's maybe 4 to 5 teams that are in some capacity actually available for purchase. And the story is about the Twins. They've been owned by the Pohlad family for decades now. What's going on with this? Is it a realistic, they're going to have new owners in place in the next year? Or is this actually one of those situations like the Nats and the Angels where the people getting excited about a possible sale are probably going to be disappointed in the end if it doesn't happen?
Yeah, so I'm always worried when I come back off maternity leave, guys, that I'm out of the loop. But somehow these stories find me, and now I'm too busy in my week back. And the Twins ownership one is one. I think I made some calls on the first day I was back, and the more I dug into this, obviously with Ken Rosenthal and Dan Hayes, the more it became a case of this isn't a when are the Twins going to sell. It is still very much an if the Pohlad family is going to sell. And as you mentioned, Eric, it's not unusual. I think what's unusual about the Twins is the amount of debt they're carrying. Now, every team pretty much operates in the red. Teams take up massive amounts of debt. In the case of the Twins, it's $425 million in excess of that. We were told it's a little closer to like that 430 number. So it's a lot of debt. To kind of compare, the Mets, a big market team with a lot of revenue, $350 million in debt. So the Twins are more in debt and their profit margins are a lot smaller. And people wondering, how do you get into this much debt? Well, if you own a team, there are four major avenues in terms of, how to bring in money. Tickets sold is a big one. Corporate sponsorships is a huge one. Media rights is a big one. And then it is your team's merchandise sales, your licensing, your retail, all that stuff. You look at the Twins, their RSN situation has been a disaster. They lost their RSN. They were making, I think it was $48 million, and that was a reduced fee last year. MLB is taking it over. Sources told me they estimate, or they've been telling these potential buyers, they're going to get about $33 million. That's a pretty big haircut, and that's a pretty optimistic forecast. I think most teams have gotten even less than that from MLB. So you look at that. You look at the fact that they haven't bought 2 million fans since 2019. They've tried to go all in on payroll as much as they can, and eventually you're going to find yourself in a situation where you don't have the revenue to cover payroll. You don't have the revenue to cover your debts. That's the same situation the Lerner family found themselves in when they put themselves on the market with the Nationals. They were a team that constantly is in violation of that debt covenants, which MLB has, which says you can only have a certain amount of debt in relation to your profit and how much your organization is worth. I don't know this for certain, but there's just no way that the Twins are in violation of that. Now, MLB says that there are issues if you keep hitting it. You get 1 year where you can hit that debt number, and then you got to straighten yourselves out. I know that there are franchises, I was told, that constantly remain in trouble in debt covenants, and MLB doesn't really do anything about it. So, these teams just keep racking up this debt. If you're in the red, you're going to keep being in the red. And so I think if you're a potential buyer right now, you're looking at it as, okay, Forbes estimates, this value of this team is between 1.46 billion and 1.7 billion. If you're a buyer, are you taking on that debt? It's likely you're going to at best split it with the poll odds. So the poll odds are looking to get, as we reported, closer to that 1.7 number at least, because they owe so much debt. So if they take 1.5, which one interested party floated, and we were told isn't a starter, they're now only walking away only with $1 billion, right? Because of the money that they owe. Obviously, I'm simplifying it, other parties are taking pieces of the pie. Allen and Co. is in charge of the sale, things like that. But this presents a problem if you are a interested party, because the Twins don't have real estate around the stadium, so they don't really have a whole lot of other revenue streams to make them profitable right now. The media deal is very precarious for them, as for many other teams in Major League Baseball. And in order to get out of debt, you really can't go out and spend to try to get the fan base to come back. So it's tough to imagine season tickets and corporate partnerships and corporate sales really going through the roof with a new ownership group. So, this isn't as good of a buy as you would think. Their multiplier, which is what Forbes and Sportico and buyers use to kind of look at what they're worth, is in the fours. And to put that kind of plainly, the Yankees multiplier in terms of what they are worth is 11, right? Because of the brand, the national recognition, all these things that even if the Yankees have, let's say, $500 million of debt, they're still a better buy because of all those other things. So there's not a whole lot of optimism around this sale. Certainly all you need is one interested party, but they're very early on in this process, guys. And I think once Justin Ishbia pulled out, it really kind of changed the whole thing, because the Twins thought they had this uber billionaire. It wasn't going to be super complicated. He's got the money to invest the 30 to 50% needed to be like an anchor or a kingpin, really the face of this sale. And now they're left struggling trying to find, somebody with local ties to Minnesota, which isn't really that, it's tough to do with someone with that kind of money. There aren't too many people who can afford 30 to 50% of a team. And right now they're looking at these groups that, are put together with a lot of different people. And so far, nobody is willing to go that far. It is early in the process. They had indications of interest that were due last week. But, this is not a scenario where they're going to sell no matter what. The Pollard family could do what the Angels and Nationals did, which is feel like the offers weren't good enough, pull them off the market, and break the hearts of Minnesota Twins fans all over again.
It'd be very disappointing if you're a fan that wants a ownership group that will spend more on the organization, spend more on payroll, right? And even with some of the things the Twins have changed in recent years, this is the team that just finally snapped an 18-game postseason losing streak in 2023. So, decades of failed runs into the postseason that I think people that are fans of this team are saying, come on, like when are we going to go to that next level? Aaron Gleeman wrote about how little the Twins have done since signing that free agent deal with Carlos Correa now 2 off seasons ago. It's been a strange time to be a Twins fan for sure. And one other detail I just want to throw back in there. I mean, the Pohlads bought the team for $44 million in 1984. So even if they didn't get everything they wanted,
$130 million in today's money.
Okay, yeah, right. So the profit, if they were to sell for less than they wanted, they could sell for $1.3 billion and get a 10x return. That's what? So
I know, but there's pressure from the league. They don't want them to sell for 1.3 or 1.5.
Right.
Keep in mind, the last team that sold was the Orioles, who sold for 1.725, I believe. Right.
They want the numbers to keep going up.
Right. Right. So it does get complicated because of all this extra debt that the Twins have accrued.
But that's why you need these uber rich anchors is because, I mean, there's just a piece that just came out about the Pirates, operating at a small loss every year, right? And of course they do that for, a lot of reasons. And one of the reasons is just to sort of write off your other profits and other enterprises. It's good to have sometimes something where you kind of just write off losses and bounce, your profits in other places. The other one is, of course, that you can lose a little bit year over year and still gain a lot in the final sale. You're gaining in equity, you're gaining in value, in franchise value. But who can ostensibly run an organization that might lose them $5 to $10 million a year, be happy about that because in the end they'll sell for a couple billion or whatever, like there's only a certain type of person that can do that. And it's not even the people who have 5 or 10 million or 20 million stashed away. It's people who have to have billions stashed away. And so
billions, like the small players in these groups, guys. Like someone was telling me, like, oh, it's easy to find someone who's in for 50 or 100 million, and you're like, what? Like, what? Like, so
yeah.
What we're talking about?
I mean, the Giants just sold
way more than that.
Was it the Giants that just sold 10% to private equity or something?
Yeah.
So that's the easy. They sold 10% to private equity. They used that money sort of like debt. Sort of like the reason the Pohlads went into debt. They use it to improve the park, or because they signed Willie Thomas. I don't know. Like they use it to pay for things that they need. In I think the Giants case, a lot of it is paying for the other thing that you mentioned that the Twins don't have, which is the Giants are lucky enough to have a lot of real estate around it. They were gifted real estate with the park, which was supposedly for parking, and now they're converting all the parking into real estate that they're building on top of. They need money to build the real estate, to finish all that real estate that they've built, and so that's I think probably why they took this investment. But the Twins don't have that unless they can look at their parking lots in a different way, and
they don't own them. They lease their stuff to the Maryland ballpark. I mean, the Maryland one is the one here with the Orioles, the Minnesota Ballpark Authority. So they don't own any of that. And I was talking to somebody that mentioned the standard now is the battery, because if most of these teams are operating at a small loss or breaking even, if you can have something around, I think the battery makes 50 or 60 million. It's public information. Anyone can look it up. But having that influx of cash every year is huge. No, like having that.
Yeah, especially we're talking about, some teams operating at a $5 million loss. If you had a thing that made $40 million, like, that would be huge. That would mean more payroll money. Yeah.
So this is
the Braves don't operate at a loss because the Braves are owned by a corporation. They don't really want, to lose money on it. So they make money, but it's not the same for every organization. We can't just say the Braves make money, so therefore the Pirates do.
Right. Yes. And it seems like everybody now wants that battery because it is a way to have year-round income, year-round drive people to the stadium. Have the restaurants and the apartment buildings, the condos. That's what interested buyers want. That is actually what David Rubenstein, when he bought the Orioles, referenced to me was one of the goals was to build that up around Camden Yards. Right. So this is becoming the norm. So if you look at the Twins, if they don't have that capacity for that land around there, if they don't have a media deal, they're not like I mentioned the Mets that have SNY and have these strong brands. They're not a national brand. You don't like go to other countries and see a ton of Twin stuff. It's not the Yankees or the Dodgers. So it is hard to say, how do we get ourselves out of debt? Are we going to operate like the Tampa Bay Rays for the next 10 years, right? Like, it is tricky when you look at it from a perspective of, do I want to buy this team? And I think the Pollets have gotten a lot of grief for being cheap. And I don't necessarily think they've been cheap as much as they've been mismanaged. The Twins haven't had a lot of turnover. They were slow to adapt. They are run like a mom and pop shop that takes a lot of pride in not firing people. And while that is great from like a morale standpoint, it's not great in professional baseball, as you guys know. New groups come in and everybody must go, and it's terrible. And we lament good people getting let go, but there's also change that happens and that needs to happen sometimes to these organizations. And I think, if you continue to, overrun, if you continue to misrun it and not let go of people, maybe add people on and not really ever adapt and go out and spend more money on your payroll than you're taking in, it's very easy over the 40 plus years that they've owned this team to continue to accumulate debt to get to that level, especially
you get bloated.
Yeah.
And from just in terms of a strategy standpoint, like, you're not implementing new strategies as quickly because you're not bringing in new people that implement these strategies. I mean, there's a great piece by Jen McCaffrey about the sort of growing pains that Craig Breslow has had in Boston, where he's been firing people and people aren't happy about that. It's been people that have been with the organization for a long time, but he had a vision for it. I do hope that we don't get sort of a private equity creep into the business. That's what the Giants deal was a private equity investment. And I hope that, the Pollats don't say, okay, we'd rather sell, 20% to private equity, to get rid of this debt and to move on. Than do this to a single buyer, because private equity just honestly has a different model. They want to extract more value quickly. It's a lot about streamlining a lot of times. I mean, the private equity rule book is to kind of come in and be super aggressive in the way that the Pollats haven't been. So they'd be massively firing people, and it might be too far in the other direction where it's all about uber efficiency and taking money out. If a private equity firm ran the Twins, I think it would be even more like the Rays. I think it would be an even, smaller payroll, and it would be, fewer scouts, and, they'd be cutting corners wherever the machine said they could cut corners, and they'd probably want to sell on the other side pretty quickly, because that's private equity wants to get in, make their 3-4x, whatever it is, and get out as quickly as possible. And so I don't know that that'd be really great. What's happening, there's some of that happening in the minor leagues right now, because the private equity's in the minor leagues. Private equity's buying up all the minor league parks. There's a couple corporations, a couple like private equity people that are in the minor leagues buying up the private parks. And there's news out of the Northwest, where the team that shares the park with the Oregon Ducks, it's a pretty good facility. You're sharing with the Oregon Ducks. I mean, this is like a D1 facility. They're saying, "Oh, you need more money, or we're out of here." It's like, okay, we're going to do this on a minor league level now. We're going to take people hostage in every city around the U.S. for new parks all the time. So. Some parts of the playbook are not exciting, but when you don't have those parts of the playbook available to you, then you're also not as exciting to buy, right?
Yeah. And this is something MLB does police. MLB does, select. Rob Manfred does pick who gets the next team. He does have a heavy say in that. That's how that Derek Jeter group ended up with the Marlins, right? MLB really pushed that through, even though I think there were some higher offers, if I recall correctly, at the time. So hopefully you think MLB would recognize those pitfalls, because they want owners that stay in it for a while, right? They don't want a lot of turnover on that level. So we'll see when it ends up happening. It is fascinating, but it's not unprecedented if they were to just take the team off the market and wait a little bit more, because I think the next couple of years, especially with the media deal, we're really going to find out, because you look at the NFL or the Celtics, and teams are going for $6 billion, right? MLB really has to figure out the media thing, I think, to watch this leapfrog.
talked to Evan Drellick a little bit before this, just about there's a local TV deal that got announced. The Phillies, but also the A's and Giants are selling, basically their local RSN stuff through MLB TV. So subscribers can get the Giants now through MLB TV and avoid blackouts. But Evan did not think this was a bellwether for major changes in the industry because he thought this is a way for them to avoid blackouts, which is something that they have had feedback that people really hate the blackouts. So now if you hate the blackouts, you can just pay a little bit extra. You can pay $20 a month extra to MLB TV to avoid the blackouts, basically, and get the team that you want through MLB TV. Now, that is going to be useful, but it's not the same kind of huge money that a national TV deal represents. And what Evan was talking about, which he's been writing about a lot, is that what they're trying to do is get all of these TV deals. Most of these TV deals run out like 2028. They're trying to get all of these TV deals out of the picture so that they can basically package whatever they want into the national package, and then come like a NBA on TNT. And be like, what games do you want? You can get whatever games you want. Don't worry about our local TV deals. If you want Dodgers Yankees on Saturday, you got it, And so that's what I think that the plan is for Manfred. But let's say he makes a lot more money, with this, or makes it he lost ESPN money. They just lost a bunch of ESPN money. Let's say they make up the lost ESPN money, the lost cable money. Maybe they make more with this new approach where they package things and give it to the streamers and give it to whoever wants it. Even if they do that, it doesn't always filter down. Like, I thought this would be, this is national money. We can do basically shift some of the local TV to national money. And so then the Pirates and the Twins and the Rays will get more money because more of the TV money is shifted towards national. We have a big national deal. The national money comes in. But Evan pointed out that the MLBPA may not be fully on board with that because more national TV money is being revenue shared down to like the Pirates and Twins does not mean that the Pirates and Twins will spend.
Right. We kind of have a feel already for where those teams set their internal caps. It's based on guaranteed money that comes in from a few different sources. So we've mapped this before. Like, you can almost project the payroll with a few pretty simple inputs. I don't think that's going to change everything the way some people might believe. Really quick takeaway. The Rays situation is pretty wild right now because there is a force working against Stu Sternberg, the league, and some other owners, like maybe trying to push him out as the Rays owner. He walked away from a deal that was in place for a stadium in St. Petersburg, right? That's a whole story that could be a whole episode. So maybe the Rays are, even though they're not on the block to be sold, maybe they change hands at some point in the near future. Which team is most likely to have new ownership
there's
in
an
place?
Orlando group that's like trying to put together a bid and trying to move.
Yeah,
Rays,
it could be a whole episode. There's a lot going on.
There's tons going on there. But Rays, Nats, Angels, White Sox, all the teams we've heard as being available by various means over the last year or two. Which one is most likely? We'll count the Twins as part of this too. Which team is most likely to have a new ownership group in place by opening day of 2026? Which fan base could actually be happy 1 year from today with some new owners in place?
I'm going to go Rays.
Because of the forces trying to push Stu Sternberg out?
I don't think that the Lerner family would have to re-put them on the block like today for that to happen again. And they're in an uncertain situation with RSN, 1 more year Masson, then who knows? I think they're kind of waiting. The White Sox aren't selling until Jerry Reinsdorf dies. He's made that pretty clear. And the Angels did the same song and dance with Artie Moreno. And so I don't see anything changing there either. So I'm going to go with Rays.
I think I would go with the White Sox just because I don't think he's going to be around that long.
He's basing it on that. I think
I don't think he's going to be around that long. I'm sorry. It's like a weird thing to say.
Like the only thing he has going for him, he says.
Is his health?
His 80s, yeah.
Okay, well, maybe he'll be around forever. But I just also just think it's a large market, and they've already sort of made machinations either on leaving or they're not locked into the cell or whatever it's called now. what is it called now? I hate that they change names all the time.
I don't know. We can call it Cellular Field, though.
Okay. It's a
Guaranteed rate field?
guaranteed
They call
rate.
it? Sure.
I don't think they're locked in lease-wise. So, like, they can leave or they can get a new stadium. And if they stay in Chicago, it's a pretty big market. What I've seen analysis-wise is that the big markets can float two teams. I don't know, though. It really seems like Manfred wants to be out of the multi-team market deal. At least that's what I gather from the Oakland situation to some extent.
I'm just rolling my eyes at it because I think it's absurd. I think the huge markets can definitely support two teams, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now because I do want to get to other topics.
I know, this is the last thing. There was some research that suggested that teams in the same market compete on price. So he doesn't want that.
So he wants a small market team and a big market team in each market?
Well, competing on price would mean that on some level the Yankees and the Mets keep each other honest on ticket prices.
I don't think that's what's happening.
That's absurd. No. We got to get to our predictions.
Supporting the research. Okay.
I don't think that's what's happening there. I never want to host a show that's only about the business of baseball. It just makes me feel gross even talking about it. So if you need to take a shower after 26 minutes of baseball business talk, I completely understand. Let's get to our bold predictions for the 2025 season. We'll try to self-grade these as we go along for their spiciness factor. Eno, I'm going to give you the floor first. Throw us your first bold prediction for the 2025 season. I've terrified Eno by putting him on the clock first.
Okay, go, Eno.
Okay. The Red Sox win it all.
That's a trendy hot take. Like, I've seen a lot of people have that take.
That's a trendy hot take.
It's a trendy hot take. I've seen at least 3 or 4 other people. And on our athletic poll, on our athletic MLB, we just did that the other day. There were multiple people who predicted the Red Sox.
Well, I was one of them. So
yes, I know. Trendy.
So you're going to say,
I like
Peppers get all the credit when Chaim Bloom built the team.
That's true. That is true.
That's kind of bothered me lately. I was talking to someone about that. I don't want to take 10 minutes on every hot take. We'll get into that at another point in the show.
No, I think it's really a good point. We've said it here. Even like he put up a lot of the structures that are still standing. So yeah, he deserves a lot of credit. And also
is promoting top prospects and spending because ownership is finally letting him spend. So
yeah, he's also trading some of those prospects. Maybe Chaim wouldn't have traded for Garrett Crochet. Maybe.
Eno had a heavy hand in that, though.
Yeah.
What I've seen is helping.
Yeah. Interesting. But I think that Garrett Crochet is a big deal because he's the ace's ace, and they put together a lot of depth in that rotation around him. I don't know how good each of them is going to be, but they're all pretty good. They have shown that they will do advanced pitching strategies, that they'll push the needle when it comes to, not using fastballs or whatever it is. So I think that they have an interesting strategy when it comes to pitching. Their bullpen isn't great, but Justin Slayton was a great find. And, I think that, Chapman throws hard and they'll find some other guys. Richard Fitz has been up to 96 miles an hour, sitting 96 in spring. So there's some good stories on the pitching side. Christian Campbell makes the team, and it's coming off a bad spring. So, this is due to them just being sure that he's ready. They even have the number 1 prospect by Keith Law going back down in Roman Anthony. Oh, and by the way, Marcelo Meyer, who people are souring on, also plays shortstop and can come up if there's a problem. And then David Hamilton is like my favorite glue guy in the league. I mean, he's just a guy who can play anywhere in the infield and be a dude. They have dudes all up and down that lineup. They've got old guys, they've got young guys. I don't know. It just seems like they're primed to go.
I don't have a rebuttal for the take. I think it's a well-defended take, but I think I'm going to give it a grade of 1 pepper on the 1 to 5 scale for its spiciness. Because I agree with Britt. I think people are warming up to this Red Sox team being really good, and maybe some of that's the Garrett Cole injury and Soto leaving the Yankees and just a few things that have transpired over the last few months. But I think a lot of it is actually belief in the Red Sox pushing chips in too.
Yeah.
That was actually one part of it that was in the bold predictions today.
I agree with that one.
The team projections have like 4 to 6 National League teams before there's an American League team.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, that doesn't surprise me though.
So the American League is
that your next?
So,
what's your next spicy take? Is that the AL isn't good?
Oh,
I don't know. I mean, that's part of this Red Sox take is like the road is open, for somebody to kind of march through the American League.
Well, there may be a spicy take from me coming a little later that kind of leans into that argument. But let's give the floor to Britt. Your first bold prediction for 2025, Britt.
This is tough here. Am I going to go with my spiciest up front, or do I go with the most benign?
It's like hot ones. You got to build up to it. Don't start at the top.
It's not okay. I'm going to say the Oakland A's make the playoffs.
The A's making the playoffs?
Yes, that's fairly spicy. I think that's medium grade salsa right there. Listen, Lawrence Butler is a star. I think Mark Kotsay is one of the better managers in baseball. Underrated. Doesn't get the credit he deserves. We know the A's finally spent money this winter. People that I've talked to say that John Fisher is energized. He's out. He's about. He's kind of willing to commit now that he's finally out of Oakland. I know. Take with that what you will. But we just said the AL is kind of weak. So especially when you look at where Oakland is, the AL West, right? I think that is a wide open division. Houston is much weaker without Bregman and Kyle Tucker. We don't know Texas. Are they going to be able to, are they going to stay healthy first and foremost? Second, their pitching depth has taken a little bit of a hit, and they have St. Patrick Corbin because they really need innings. Seattle really could have won the division that they just got like two big bats and instead chose to do nothing because Jerry Dipoto wants to win 54% of games.
Or they're not being given any money to spend.
True. I just think that it's a wide open division and that even if the A's don't win with the expanded format, it wouldn't surprise me if they snuck in. They've got a lot of young guys. Mason Miller obviously had a big coming out party. I just think that they are an interesting team, and it wouldn't surprise me if they made the playoffs. So that is going to be my spicy take one.
It's got to get at least two peppers, maybe three. Right now they're projected to be the 25th team in baseball.
Thank you.
Right. FanGraphs has a 12.3% chance of the Athletics making the playoffs. That's probably 4 out of 5 peppers, I think, for a spicy take.
Oh, we're doing a 5 pepper thing, and I still got one?
Yeah, you still got one, dude.
Oh, I got to push the needle.
1.5? You want an extra half pepper? We'll give you an extra half.
No, I'm not crying for peppers. I'm realizing I need to recalibrate.
Yeah. You got to recalibrate. I'll join you with a one pepper take of my own here in just a second. But to Britt's point, the position player core for the Athletics is good. I think the question is going to come down to pitching and run prevention. Are they going to be average in that group? Are they going to have some guys step up in the rotation and the bullpen to give them more depth? Mason Miller was a great story last year. They added Jose Leclerc as a air quotes, big spend in the bullpen. I don't think Jose Leclerc is even that good. So it's going to come down to some guys that maybe we're less familiar with, adding some depth, and Jeffrey Springs not being cooked and Luis Severino being able to pitch in Sacramento. And that's where most of my questions are. But as far as that position player group goes, I think they're doing pretty well overall in terms of player development and scouting. And that was not something I thought was true. Like going into last year, I thought they did a really good job in 2024 showing us that they were not as far off track as it once appeared.
I think they reacted also to the fact that maybe they are a little better at coaching hitting and advancing hitting prospects by going out and getting veteran pitchers. So they were just like, hey, that's not happening. We're not creating pitchers here. So let's go get Jeffrey Springs and Luis Severino and these guys.
I also think when they're playing in Sacramento, they're going to figure out there's going to be some kind of home field advantage because it's such a wacky situation that eventually they're going to figure out a way to maximize playing in that minor league park. And it's going to be a tough place for other teams to just come in and play on. It's, the surface is going to be super hot. I know they adjusted the schedule a little bit, but it's still, I think it's going to be a situation where I think Oakland's going to have a really good home. We can't call them Oakland anymore, I guess. So the A's are going to have a really good home record. I think it might take a little time, but I think they're going to turn that, all those weird little quirky parks like Tropicana Field with the Rays, they kind of figure out a way to make it a house of horrors for away teams. And I kind of see that happening.
Yeah, I don't know how extreme that park is going to be, how hot it's going to actually be, and how much it's going to boost offense and make it tough to pitch there. But definitely some concerns as they try to adapt. All right, my first bold prediction is my least bold prediction. It might just be a prediction. Might not even count as bold. Might be worse than the Eno Red Sox win the World Series one. I think Tyler Glasnow wins the NL Cy Young Award this year. Is that on the same level? Is that also a one pepper, maybe a two?
I mean, actually winning it is
The NL
you got to
field's
give him at
loaded.
least 2.
Yeah, that might be
The
too.
NL's
Yeah.
I think by odds, he's like plus 2,000 at BetMGM. So there's, I don't know, 8, 10, 12 guys ahead of him by odds. So I think it's at least a little bit spicy.
Well, that's pretty spicy. I thought you were going to say something like Paul Skeens wins the Cy Young.
No. But I felt lame.
I mean, if I were you,
saying
I'd have said, finishes top 3 in the Cy Young just to cover my bases. But that's, of course, that would take Peppers away. So I'm learning from you right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Peppers, Derek, that's spicy. I'm giving it 3.
Is this on the same level? I'll go for the next one next. I have Wyatt Langford winning the AL MVP award. Is that as spicy or spicier than Glass now to win the NL Cy Young?
God, one of my bold predictions in my piece was Wyatt Langford being an all-star.
See? Yes.
That's more spicy because I feel like there's a lot of it's not like he's a nobody. The hype is there. The ability, the talent. It's just a question of, is he going to put it all together, or is he a year or 2 away? Right. So I don't think it's
he's a super high
pick.
pick.
Bobby Witt Jr. because I think the ceiling for him, he's just going to keep getting better. I think it's his award to lose. I know he didn't win it last year, but those are some spicy ones. Honestly, I had Jacob deGrom as NL Cy Young. I thought that was spicy. Not NL. It's really spicy because he's not in the NL.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, wow, you have him getting traded early in the year and winning the NL Cy Young. That's incredible.
And I mean, I know he's old. I know the arm can't always hold it, but man, he looked good in spring. And he still makes it look really easy when he's healthy and right. He's still one of the best pitchers in baseball. So I thought that was kind of a spicy take.
Okay, so we got 2 Cy Young ones.
Yep.
We got at least 2 or 3 Peppers on these guys.
Yep.
I'm just ashamed of my 1 Pepper. So I'm throwing my Cy Young prediction into the mix, and I'm hoping this scores more Peppers. Gavin Williams wins the American League Cy Young.
5.
Yeah,
5 out of 5 Peppers.
Yeah.
And I say this as someone who likes Gavin Williams, but I think there's something to this play. I think you can be more aggressive with an AL Cy Young call this year because
Paul Skeens is sitting over there on the National League.
I mean,
yeah, so maybe it's only 4 Peppers because of that.
Well, it's 5 though, because even on his own team, I think most people would say Bibby's more likely than Williams. Just on that alone, and then you look at like the Mariners starters, Skubal, the Garrett Crochet still in the AL. There's tons of great pitchers that you'd probably say are much more likely than Gavin Williams. I'm giving you a 5 out of 5 on the
That's
Gavin
a really
Williams.
good one, yeah.
That's a great bold prediction.
I just have him. Just to back it up a little bit, he was the spring training leader in Stuff Plus, which is one thing because we I admit this openly that we're missing some data in there. It's the spring Stuff Plus is not as good as regular season Stuff Plus for a variety of reasons. But I also before this show, did some work on who changed their stats this spring the most. And particularly in strikeout rate. And the biggest change in the spring in strikeout rates belongs to Gavin Williams, who struck out 38.2% of the batters he saw. And I know it's only 17 innings in spring training, but there is some research coming out right now that suggests that spring training data in results is worth about 75% of regular season data. So it is about the same as him doing 2 or 3 good starts, but heck, they were really good starts and it's a really good start to the season. By the way, the other person who's added the most is Tyler Glasnow, second, with a 45% strikeout rate. So there you have that.
I'm ready for it. I'm here.
I like it.
Okay, so Britt, you said your A's take wasn't your spiciest bold prediction. So what's your most bold prediction that you're going to throw out there?
I mean, I thought the Jacob deGrom, especially when I said he was in another league.
I think that I actually think the A's making the playoffs is spicier to me than deGrom winning the Cy Young, because deGrom winning the Cy Young is just a bet on health. If he's healthy, like sure, why not?
Okay, well, you only need to be 500 basically to make the playoffs a lot of times in that last wild card spot. So it's not like I'm picking the A's to win 100 games.
No, but their pitching does scare me.
True. I mean, again, it's a spicy take. I don't know if this one is spicy, but I think I picked it in the staff pickings. I picked it at SNY. I might as well go all in on the crazy. I don't think the Red Sox win the World Series. I don't think the Dodgers win the World Series. I think the New York Mets win the World Series.
Oh.
Yeah, they got the 2-2 going from last year. I know it doesn't carry over, They obviously signed a little guy called Juan Soto, who happened to be the best free agent available. And even if they have a slow first half, we know what they have, which is Steve Cohen, an owner willing to say, do what you got to do. Let's make the moves. David Stearns is really settling in, I think, to that role in New York. He's more aggressive, but we also know he's really good at roster management and building depth, which is what we saw last year with that team and some of the not sexy but really important moves that he made at the deadline and in addressing the bullpen. I think Edwin Diaz is primed to have a better season than he did last year. I think Francisco Lindor with Juan Soto being there is going to be even better. I just think that they're a team. They got Pete Alonso back. He's going to be motivated because he had such a disappointing free agency. I just think everybody always picks the best team on paper. The team who wins the winter almost never wins the World Series. So if it's not going to be the Dodgers, who is it going to be? You can make a case for a bunch of different teams, the Phillies, the Braves, Derek's right. They're all in the NL pretty much. But why not the Mets? Right? Carlos Mendoza did a terrific job as a rookie manager. He's only going to get better. That to me, I don't know. Is that a spicy take? A team with a huge payroll who got the best free agents going to win the World Series? I feel like no one's really talking about them. So it's kind of spicy. It's pseudo spicy.
I think by the numbers it qualifies. It's in the middle of the pack, 2.5, 3 Peppers probably.
No, the Mets are like a top 5 team by most projections. I give it
4.2% chance of winning the World Series, but yeah, most teams.
I mean, picking a World Series winner before the season starts is already pretty bold. I mean,
right?
Like, it's funny that we have these staff predictions. We're like, yeah, predict the and I'm always like, I just say something. Like, honestly, like, what are we supposed to do? Like, like there are these teams. I think if for the Mets to do it, I think it's a little bit bold because I don't know that they have the pitching.
I know.
But could they acquire pitching during the season? They also have become good at developing it. Clay Holmes looks so excellent this spring. Maybe he's actually a front 2 starter. Could he do like 150 innings of being a front 2 starter this year? Maybe. I don't know. Like, so I like it. I like it for that reason. But I would still give it to 2 Peppers.
Yeah, I was at like 2.5. Like it's solid.
All right. I guess the A's was my spiciest one. Someone asked me the other day, like, what do you want out of the baseball season? And I said chaos, but they said that was already taken. So I was like, okay, you know what else I want? I want teams that try to win to win. I want the Mets to win. I want the Royals to win. It doesn't all have to look like getting Juan Soto, right? Kansas City's trying is different than the Mets trying, but I want the teams that tried to win to win. I don't want some team like the Tigers last year that sold and we turn it into this great story. Goes, the front office didn't believe in them and they're win. No, I want the teams that tried to win, that pushed their chips in to be rewarded for that. That's what I want. I don't know if that's spicy or not. But I don't want to celebrate some 85 win team that snuck in despite the front office doing nothing.
Fair.
Yeah. Selling at the deadline.
Yeah.
I mean,
like
the guys that were there to do it, but yeah, it was a strange development, and we certainly didn't see it coming on this show as we kind of like ducked away from the Tigers for most of September.
Yes. And the Tigers will tell you that they weren't selling, they were clearing room for their young guys, but did it not?
We've been bagging on teams not spending. The Mariners, 6 years, $105 million to Cal Raleigh.
Hey.
Oh, that's nice.
At least it's extending a kid. It's not really new money though.
No,
anyway.
They didn't have control of him for that long, right? Like, would they have 2 years left after this one?
Great young catch.
Yeah, he's been vocal too about them needing to spend. He's a good leader in there. I was just there the other day. They just need
worked out for him.
Yeah, it's good for him.
It just feels like the opportunity is so there with their pitching, and they just need one impact.
I know, and it's like what's not moving the needle, like Jorge Polanco again, and
I know maybe the ownership's not saying let's spend or whatever, but God, there's not too many years where that division has been as wide open as it is this year.
Well,
that's also why the Red Sox may benefit. The AL East is totally wide open as well.
I think the Rays are going to win the American League pennant. That was my other team-based one. I mean, I think
that's a spicy one. Sell me on that one.
They got the pieces. The McClanahan injury is fortunately not that bad. It's a nerve thing. It's not another UCL tear or something. They've got the depth to withstand it. Pepio, Boz, Bradley, Zach Littell, Rasmussen, still a good rotation. They always bring a good bullpen. think we're going to see better from Christopher Morel in this year than we saw post-trade. Junior Caminero looks like a star to me. They brought in Ha-Seong Kim coming off a shoulder injury, but I think that does make them better once he gets back. Maybe that's a little bit of an underrated addition. The Rays just find a way all the time. And even in this year, which is going to be extra weird, playing at Steinbrenner Field for their home games, having these questions about ownership swirling around, despite all of it, I think they come out of the AL and win. They go to the World Series this year.
Wow. I like it. I like it.
One more for you,
2 or 3 peppers.
Yeah.
I've got a player one. You might enjoy this one. There once was a Hall of Fame shortstop who played in Milwaukee, who was known for making a lot of contact, being good on the base pass, being good all around, just an all-around player, kind of a 2020, 290 guy.
It's setting this up.
Robin Yount. We've got a new Robin Yount. The new Robin Yount is Joey Ortiz. Joey Ortiz is going to go 270 2020, which is a number that no Milwaukee Brewers shortstop has surpassed other than Robin Yount. And he's going to do so because he was hurt last year. The neck was hurting him. And before his neck was hurting him, he hit the ball harder. He looked like a guy who could slug 20 homers. That's been what people thought of him in Baltimore. And he obviously has the speed. He's been given shortstop, and he says the neck feels good. So it all checks out. Joey Ortiz equals Robin Yount. Got to give me 5 peppers for that. Come on.
You got 5.
Yeah.
You got all 5
It's a Hall of
peppers in.
Famer.
You were good way to bring us home. You went the opposite. You gave us the least spicy first, and then you ended it.
Well, I had to see where the room was.
Spicily.
I see where the room was.
I mean, I picked the Red Sox to win it all. You picked the Mets to win it all. The Red Sox are projected much worse than the Mets.
I guess the Oakland is my spiciest take.
That
What
is
do
a
I
good
know?
one. Yeah.
I had to hedge on the Rays by just saying they'd only win the American League, that they wouldn't win the World Series, which leaves the possibility they could win the World Series and I'd still be right.
It's what they like to do, though. They go to the World Series, they lose the World Series.
Yeah, I bet they love it, right? It's got to be fun.
Yes,
now.
it's really
But
fun.
I think that's an
As a Braves
underrated
fan
roster.
Growing up, I can say that's fun.
Super fun. Well, we are going to go. Just a quick reminder on our way out the door. Join our Discord with the link in the show description. Thanks to our producer, Brian Smith, for putting this episode together. That is going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We are back with you on Wednesday.
Thanks for listening.